All right, I think we'll get started. All right, everyone ready? Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Allison Manley. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Canopy Studios. Today we're hosting a webinar about how to make your site last for 5 years and possibly more. We are all about lasting, sustainable sites that go for the long term. So as Anne mentioned, things are a bit strange in the world right now, and it's likely impacted you and your business and budget. So it's imperative to make pragmatic choices moving forward. And since websites are typically an organization's largest marketing tool, this means your site is now more crucial than ever. Since few organizations have the budget to fully redo a site every few years, we at Canopy believe in creating and supporting websites that really can sustain you for the long term without spending a fortune. A little bit about Canopy. We design and build and support websites for clients that want to make a positive impact. And a little bit about Anne, who is to my left, right, whatever, right. She's to my right. She's the founder and CEO of Canopy, and she helps create clarity around project needs and turns client conversations into actionable outcomes. She really enjoys helping clients identify problems and then empowering our Canopy team to execute great solutions. Anne is an advocate for open source and co-organizes the Bay Area Drupal camp. And now, because Canopy loves helping clients with sustainable sites, we also want to just let you know that Canopy is offering a 25% off of any growth plan, which is a small bite-sized targeted plan to increase the impact of your website. So you can email us at hello@canopy.com at any time. We'd be happy to help you with that. Thanks to all of you who did submit some questions to us in advance via the type form. That was really helpful for us to be able to tailor this presentation more to your needs. So we will address some of those questions in the deck, many of them in the Q&A after the webinar as well. If during the webinar you do have additional questions, please feel free to type those in the side chat as we go. I'm going to be keeping a list for the queue afterwards. And from here, I'm going to turn off my video and turn it over to Anne.
Okay, hi everybody. And just before we get going, I'm really excited to be here. This is Bruiser. I actually have 2 dogs. The other one is with Papa Dog in the other room, but this is Bruiser. Hi, Bruiser. Can you say hi? He'll probably poke around. Oh, there he is. Okay, everybody loves Bruiser. So I just wanted to introduce you to my little work from home companion. Okay, wonderful. So we'll just go ahead and dive in. And if you have any questions, like I said, go ahead, add them in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll work together to try to answer them. Thank you also for submitting questions in advance, and we've added some new slides if you've seen this before. So, as mentioned, my name's Anne Stefanik, and I'm founder and CEO of Canopy Studios. I've been working in the web since 2006, and at Canopy, like Allison said, we focus on taking care of the whole life cycle of the website. What we do is, while we can do brand new projects, our specialty really is support. And that means we're really good at taking someone else's code and making big improvements. So this is actually my QR code. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, you can take a picture of that and it will actually open up my LinkedIn profile if you want to connect with me there or reach out in any other way. So people ask why Canopy, and just before we move on, just the main reason people love to work with us is that we make websites easy to understand and effective. And we really help take care of that full life cycle of the website. And we do this through our values. So our values shine through our nimble, can-do attitude, our trust in each other, and the clarity with which we communicate. The way each of us works to own it, as we have a culture of accountability. From our community work to our client work to supporting each other, we prove that we are better together. And that leads us to our final value, gratitude. We're grateful we get to work with great people, great clients to create impactful futures for all. So we are here to help. It's my mission to really make websites really easy to understand and effective. We know that this is a strange time, so feel free to reach out at bit.ly/meet-canopy. And just to know that if you have a Drupal 7 site, oh, you can't hear me. Can you still hear me, everybody? I see one person can't hear me. Yeah, we can still hear you. Okay, cool. Right on. Okay, cool. Right on. What we'll do is the recording will definitely send on the recording. Okay. If you have a Drupal 7 site, feel free to reach out with us because we have a program where we're helping extend the life of D7 sites right now. Yeah, so let's just jump right into it. So first off, I wanted to start off this presentation talking about 2 things. The first thing is Kaizen, or what we call continuous improvement. This is the Sino-Japanese word for improvement. And what continuous improvement really vibes on, it's understanding that from all business activities, from the CEO to assembly line workers, really that everybody was continuously working on improving the business. And this is the way I run my business and the lens through which we support our client sites. The other key concept, and you may recognize this gentleman, is Simon Sinek. And he wrote a book recently called The Infinite Game. And I loved this book. It really resonated with me, not only for how we live life, how we run businesses, but also how we take care of our website. And Simon Sinek books points out that running an organization is a journey without a final destination. And the book really distinguishes between two types of games, finite games and infinite games. Finite games are things like football or chess, where the players are known and there's a fixed upon objective. Really, there's always winners and losers. And the infinite game, on the other hand, are the players are known and unknown. There's no exact rules, and there's no winning the infinite game. The objective of the infinite game is to continue playing the game. So that, again, is how I run the business and how we approach our client sites. I love this quote. When you embrace an infinite mindset, you will eventually build stronger, more innovative, and more inspiring solutions with the resilience to thrive in an ever-changing world. I thought this hit the mark completely. Because when we talk about continuous website improvement, you have to know your website is never done. I always say to my clients when they come to me for a build project and when I want to start something new, I said, that's great, but no, the first day of your project is actually the day your website launches. That's why at Canopy, over 2/3 of our business is focused in support, or what we call continuous improvement. Because your website is an infinite game, and you making continuous improvements is what will help make your site last. There's no quick fix, but there's lots of little wins that we can make and build on to build a better website over the long term. So the way that we practice what we call CWI, or continuous website improvement, is in 3 different stages. And all of our clients, regardless of whoever you are, if you're a new client that's starting with a brand new project, if you're coming to us with support, if we're doing a rescue project where we're finishing your site and getting it over the finish line, we always start with strategize. So when you're looking at your website, you want to skillfully start with that lens. So let's quickly talk through that. So when you strategize, you want to uncover and really figure out what is the most actionable thing. So first off, in strategy, we like to create an actionable plan that's focused on maybe one KPI, or key performance indicator. And then we implement those most impactful features. We learn and iterate, and then we move back into strategize. So it's much more like a flywheel than a funnel. So if you think about a flywheel, it catches momentum. So you just got to get it started and it gets going. And that's how you want to think about your website. So let's break this up to see how you folks can use this at home or at work, work at home. But first off, what we want to do is we want to start with this, and then we want to do this either quarterly or annually with our clients, depending on where we are with them. So first off, we like to have understanding of the landscape. I find a SWOT, or a strength, weaknesses, opportunities, threats analysis will help understand not only the internal pressures, but also the external pressures. So that's a very helpful model just to start fleshing that out. Also, you want to take a look at your personas. We want to know who the people are, what's motivating them to do what and why. We also want to understand where they are in their user journey. Do you understand the full customer life cycle and the user journey? If not, start there and map it out, and you'll start to see the gaps that you have on your website or in your other materials. We also want to focus on, when you're looking at that, is looking at the competitive landscape, not only in terms of your industry, but also people that are potentially in looking at other ways that they're demonstrating that value online. We also want to take a look at through the data and analysis lens. You'll notice me say over and over and over again, measure what matters, because I definitely feel that if you can get a good sense of what's working, then you continue to focus on that and you don't waste time on stuff that's not working. And the only way to do that is actually to measure it. You can use Google Analytics, you can use Hotjar, you can use qualitative or quantitative surveying methods, or all different types of things. You also want to take a look at maybe doing a site checkup. Often when clients come to us they have a new site, or they've just launched a site or they need support, we need to take a look under the hood to get a good sense of what everything is. So Amy June, community ambassador at Canopy, recently did a presentation on checking under the hood, and we look at technical and UX, and so we'll post a link to that in the resources afterwards so you can take a look at that. And then we want to set SMART goals. And SMART goals are something that's so important. We find that it's so important to create actual realistic things we can do and achieve within a 3-month period so that we can keep momentum. And so when you're thinking about a strategy, pick one thing to fix it, and then you can move on. We call this first bite sometimes what we call a website growth plan. And a website growth plan is, like Allison said, we're offering a 25% discount on any of our website growth plans for you attending this webinar with us today. But at Canopy, we say big bites, or small bites for big wins. And this essentially is a small bite of strategy to solve one of your core challenges. So for example, you could take a look at your information architecture and just look at that. Is the navigation could be more usable? Is the structure actually guiding folks to the right place? Or maybe you want to look at from like the usability, like how usable is this actually? Perhaps you want to look at it from a design perspective. Maybe you have some, a new brand you're launching, or you've got some new initiatives, or you've been pivoting. My least favorite word of this year, but still a very valuable word. But maybe you're pivoting to offer more online events and you need to pivot and make sure your design meets the new needs. Accessibility, it's not really an option anymore. It's now a legal liability to not be compliant. So making sure that you have a strategy around accessibility is a very good, healthy bite. Performance, maybe your site is slow. This is a number one issue we see with a lot of our new sites that come into support is they're just slow, and that just increasing the performance by getting them on a better host or doing some performance enhancements can greatly impact search engine rankings. Content. You'll hear me talk about content a lot. So content's a really important part of looking at your strategy. And if all else fails, your site is really crusty, you need to do something, you got the funds to move into D7, come up with a strategy for migration. Garbage in, garbage out, you probably don't need to take everything with you. So come up with a game plan if you are planning to migrate. And as a reminder that these are just growth plans, so if you do want to meet with us and talk about what those are, they're always customized to you. So there's some design and user experience ones, there's Drupal 7 transition plans, and there's accessibility review plans. Oops. So do make sure if you want to meet with us at bit.ly.meet, and Tanya and I will meet with you. So once we go out of strategy, we then jump into implementation. And when we talk about implementation, we're operationalizing the plan. So we start out and we encourage you to work into 2-week sprints. Sometimes they're 3-week sprints, but essentially what we're doing is we're creating a concentrated amount of work over a 2 to 3 week time and showing results. And this is how we execute everything at Canopy. And we find that consistency, so we're always on a sprint schedule, helps us deliver value quickly. So small bites, big wins. That means that we take one thing and we do it. Let's measure it, and then move on. So by doing that, you'll create momentum. Less is more. We see so many big monolithic builds, and I'll explain later why these are super discouraged. But at this point, we also want to talk about, less is more. So we have this saying in the web world, minimum lovable product. You may or may not have heard this already, but a lot of the industry folks decided that minimum viable product sounds too viable, right? We really want to get away with the least that we love. So do the most that we love, but really get into this place where we're really doing less and launching more and making more impact. And you have to be nimble. Knowing what this is it's really hard if you set up a huge, big game plan, and then it takes you 12 months to operationalize and execute on that. Well, if you were only 6 months into your game plan and all this COVID stuff hit, you would have to throw it all out the window. So, take small bites, be nimble, and then you're able to then learn and improve. So we find that support or learn and improve is really keeping your finger on the pulse of your website. And this is support. And this is where it's really important that part of I find with a website is stopping to share your wins. So most folks, when they join our program, we commit to making sure there's results within 45 days of our engagement. So we really need to start with what those wins are. So we need to define what success is and then show our wins and gather. So what we like to do is sit down with our stakeholders when they first join our clients, 30, 60, 90 days to check in on them. And then we also sit down on a quarterly basis. And once we launch a site, we sit down 30, 60, 90 days. Great way to gather feedback and also to recap the wins because it is always so busy. We also encourage you folks to work with your stakeholders and your other people is to create monthly, weekly, rolling reports. Measure regularly and look for trends. So in order to do that, we found that sometimes when we onboard a client, their data is actually pretty dirty. Their analytics aren't set up very well. They're not doing conversion tracking, all of that stuff. Maybe the first project we have to do is put the things down, put the right markers in place so we can get the right trackers and actually get good data come the next quarter. We also encourage you to schedule user testing. I mean, this doesn't have to be complicated. You could use a tool like usertesting.com. You could also schedule some testing with your current key users on your site. And always remember to plan for feedback. So often we get really excited about all the new things we want to do and then we launch them. But if you're learning and improving, you have to make time to actually create some of those incremental improvements on stuff you've launched. So we aim to do 1 to 2 sprints on improvements on what we've already done. So you're probably thinking like, okay, where do I even start with all of this? So let's talk about some must-dos. So this is stuff that you want to take care of right away. And the first thing, content. You need to assess, refresh, retire, and redirect your content on a regular basis. Not all your content is going to serve your purpose the way it is forever. You want to take stock of underperforming content and underperforming functionality and repurpose it for today's needs. Then you can retire pages, archive sections, or redirect the old content to new content to keep your link equity for SEO. For most of our clients, I would say 99% of them, content is probably the hardest part of the project. So when we sit down and strategize, we're often doing like that full inventory of everything they've got, defining the user journey, and then figuring out what the gaps are. And those gaps is where you can start making those incremental improvements. And again, you don't need an agency to do any of this fancy stuff. All you need to do is take a whiteboard, take some sticky notes, and think of all the different interaction points that your user has with your brand, whether online or offline, and then ask yourself, do you have the supporting content? Is it clear? Is the message there? So before we even start thinking about a rebuild, think about your content. This is when clients ask me, what's the biggest risk to my project? I'm like, oh, there's 2. 1 is content and 2 is humans. Love those humans, but content, getting your hands wrapped around it right at the beginning is going to give you real clarity. That migration stuff, garbage in, garbage out, you don't want to bring over everything with you. So right now is a good time to really take a look at your content. You also want to measure what matters. And this is where I keep saying this again, like talk to your users, look at your analytics. You might not have the right markers in there to measure. So start looking at that. Again, when we start digging for data and we realize our results are dirty, that usually the data has to be cleaned up. You also want to measure things like matter. For example, like search engine rankings, right? That if you had a search engine ranking of this and now it's that is something to be concerned about. So, this drop, you want to be able to figure out how to fix that. Like, for example, if your site is not running over HTTPS or it's not really mobile responsive ready, you could be dropping in search engine rankings even with a bunch of new content. Also, don't be trendy, be user focused. So we had a great question from you folks that came in. What was, am I following a trend that will look dated in a year or 2, or am I truly implementing a refreshing style that will last the test of time? So I would say, don't pay so much attention to trends, but paying attention to how your users want and how they get information. It's always on trend to have a website that works for your users. So the more you know, the more you can do. And I have to say that because we value human connection, we've been talking to so many of our clients as they go through this transition. And because that we're so connected with them, we're able to help them move and really address their audience's needs. Be accessible. It's not really an option now. It's kind of mandatory, especially if you are a public service, or really if you're engaging with any of the humans out there. This is to be considerate. But you don't have to be AAA. We can do beautiful things that are AAA, which is the most highest level of compliance. But there's so many things that can, make yourself AA or even single A compliant that will, really make the web a better place. There's lots of things that a content editor can do. We have a couple of other webinars on accessible media and so forth that we'll share, but definitely this is something that's really close and dear to our heart. And be serious about security. I saw a lot of folks being like, oh, what's keeping me up at night? Oh, I'm getting hacked. Oh, malicious attacks or these types of things. There was actually quite a few, I'm worried about the security of my site. So the best thing to do about security is to be preventative. So be serious about it. Drupal or WordPress core updates, when they come out, you want to do them right away. Okay? Remember Drupalgeddon? Oh my gosh, that scared so many people. What a weird name. But the point is they are there to be done immediately. You want to host with a reputable provider. A lot of these hosting companies, especially ones in Drupal and WordPress, they are part of the security team. So what's happening is that they'll get the notice, they'll actually do the lockdown on the global level, and then they'll encourage you to do that. So if you're on Pantheon, Platform, Acquia, WP Engine, any of those, you're in a good place from a security standpoint. If you're not, we can help you make some recommendations. Now, module and plugin updates. People ask me all the time about this. And what we encourage is, because we have that do more with less, minimize to maximize, small bites for big wins kind of vibe at Canopy, is we do module and plugin updates either monthly or quarterly, depending on what program you're with. If they have a security update, they're done immediately. But if not, what we like to do is we like to batch those so we can avoid the switching cost. But trust me, don't leave those. Don't leave them for longer than a month or a quarter. After that, it becomes quite arduous to update your site. And when you do that, you want to definitely make sure you test. But locking your doors, closing your windows, you wouldn't leave your car unlocked, and go grocery shopping. You'd always lock it. So make sure you keep a good eye on your website from a security standpoint. And I keep saying this, but I want to say this over and over again, is that the conversations you have is stuff that's going to directly inform. So measure what matters, talk to your customer service people, talk to your front lines. They'll hear the pain points that are happening, which can then encapsulate on what are the things that you need to do to make your site better. Because know that your website is more vital than ever. Customers are making decisions and forming perceptions before they act. If you're a B2B provider, know that I think it's like 78 or 82. I'll have to actually get my fact there. But they make the purchasing decision before they even reach out on your website. So, at Canopy, we help a lot of our feel-good clients, higher ed, nonprofit. Our other side of our business is our B2B corporate marketers. And those folks are understanding that it's not an option to have a bad site. The competition's tough. The Google algorithms are tough and sophisticated. And so when you're looking at your site, here are some questions that you can start to ask yourself to pull out what are the pieces, what are the levers that I need to pull to make my site more impactful. So here are some signals. So first off, has your organization evolved? Right? Look at your site now compared to where you are now. I mean, I vow to never use the word pivot after 2020, but you probably are being forced to pivot in some way, shape, or form right now, whatever that looks like. So what is missing from your website that is not telling the story? Has your industry evolved? I mean, if you're in higher education or education, your industry has been severely impacted, and here we go. I mean, the whole teaching economy is going to be revolutionized by this strange time that we're in. But can you be a leader during this time? Can you step out with a plan? Because if your industry is evolving, and everybody in your industry is kind of freaking out, if you're the first one with a plan, it even doesn't have to be a great plan, it just has to be a plan. They're going to be with you, and then you're going to be able to create change. You also, again, are your users finding what they're looking for? You know, do you ask, do you test? If you're not doing any type of user testing, there's ways to do it guerrilla style. I don't have a list of resources, but I will, but I know usertesting.com is a great resource that's very affordable for you to ask some good questions. And I mean, looking at this time, like, have your users' needs actually changed? I mean, during this is a great example of how everything has been digital. So if your website was kind of, you know, janky before, it's going to be really janky now. And right now is such an important time to make sure that you've got a really strong digital presence. And there's lots of little things that you can do, right? Lots of pathways that you can create to create clarity. And the funny thing about all of this is often when we sit down and inventory all the stuff with our clients, it's often the content that's just missing. So in some ways, you know, if you talk to the right people and really dig in, you'll be able to figure out what you need quite quickly. Because content, it's got to be presented effectively. Your content strategy needs to be dialed, because if they don't understand what's going on, they'll just leave. Because if your conversion rates are declining, this is a serious indicator that you need to fix something. So for example, we saw a lot of clients when Google pushed in some new rules, they dropped in the search engines almost immediately because they hadn't proactively taken care of some of the stuff that was recommended. Came to us and said, oh my goodness, we didn't do these things, we need to do these things now. That's a bit of a lagging indicator. There's stuff we can figure out to make sure this doesn't happen, but if you see your conversion rates declining, you've got to do something with your website. Again, pay attention to your search engine rankings. Using the different types of tools that are out there, you can do some really good keyword analysis and figure out where you're positioned. But unless you're actively working on your website and making changes to it, it will just decline in rankings. You can't just do nothing, right? If you think about it, I think of, like, I love real estate as well as websites, right? Love yoga too. But a real estate, a house, you buy that. The life cycle of a house is 100 years. The life cycle of a website is 10 years. We want to get you to make sure you get 10 years out of your website when you work with Canopy. But if you bought this beautiful house and you did absolutely nothing to it, it was born in 1910, you bought your house in 1910 or 1920, and here you are in 2020 and have done nothing with it, I bet you it's falling over, right? The foundation's probably cracked, the roof is, I mean, you probably wouldn't even have a roof if you left it for 100 years. But the point is like with a website, if you just build it and leave it, no wonder you're gonna have to rebuild it in 2 or 3 years. You have to be able to take care of it. And with that, you know, you want to be able to stay in touch with your competitors. You want to make sure that you're on your A game and you're making incremental changes every month, every quarter, every year, whatever cadence makes sense to you. Because when it comes to, you know, making sure your site runs well, it not only has to work for the users, has great content, it needs to run fast. This is one of the easiest ways to gain search engine rankings and to gain, you know, eyeballs, is to just make it go faster, right? So, you know, it's a well-known stat that I think Google's annual page load study, that 53% of visitors will abandon your website if it takes more than 3 seconds to load, and 75% of those people will never come back to your site if it takes more than 4 seconds. We want to make your site load faster than you can blink your eyes. But know that, like, this is a way that if your site is just slow, and you can go to Google page speed and look that and put your URL in there, and it'll give you a report of stuff you can fix. So again, I'll provide that resource when we send out the webinar. And what I want to say is, like, does your site overuse design trends? Is everything parallaxed? Do you have carousels all over the place? Are there infographics that are just like there because someone wanted to create an infographic? I mean, like, who cares? Do they really matter? You know, making sure your site can really work is the first and foremost objective. And then all of the other pieces that come into play. Fads and trends are just that, and they will come and go. There's been a lot of research on carousels, and they really are not an effective use because only the first carousel gets seen before they move on. And often it is saying something that is totally specific to the moment in time versus some global positioning that helps the user understand what the organization is doing. That hero space is gold, so don't waste it with a carousel. And if you have a carousel, let's talk of how we can really optimize that space for better conversions and for better, and whatever conversions look like. You don't need to be selling stuff to convert. It might be newsletter subscriptions. It might be eyeballs on page and how long they're staying there, whatever the case may be. So be cautious with overusing trends. And know your audience, because mobile, it is not only so important, it is also different pathways. So mobile is not just about stacking. Mobile is not just taking your current site and stacking it. No, 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 no. What we want to do is we want to figure out what types of content is for the user in their journey. We have certain clients that 90% of their audience is really focused on desktop. So, I mean, the main challenge is that if we had one of our clients that was like, oh, I want to be mobile first. I want to be mobile first. Everything's going to be mobile. All my audience is on mobile, and they were so passionate about doing everything mobile first. And when we actually did our research with their audience, it was like 90% desktop users. Okay. And with that, we really got to dig deeper. And with that data, we were able to present a more compelling case why we wanted to do more on desktop than on mobile for someone who was a stakeholder who was deeply attached, right? So in this sense, like, we want to really find a way that data can speak volumes, and really knowing that the mobile experience is something that you want to take into consideration. Also, another big signal that your site maybe just needs to get fixed is it easy to use and edit? You should have very high expectations in this day and age of what a content management system should do. So know that if you're feeling your hands are tied with WordPress or Drupal, you might just have some clunky code that needs to be cleaned up. So with this, I have seen too often where a client comes to me and says, oh, I need to rebuild my Drupal site. I just don't like Drupal. I'm so done with it. Okay. I have $100,000. I want to reimagine my site. And I want to do this, and I want to do that, and I want to do this. And I was like, oh goodness. You have a very big site right now, Miss Client. Can I take a look under the hood? We did a website growth plan, or a small look at just the technical components of this website. And through that, we unearthed that they just had a really crusty theme. And there was some small editing things we could do and increase performance. So we ended up spending, $17,000 of that $100,000, fixed up the site, spent another, $25K on reimagining and pulling the design together. Boom, we were half under budget, and she had a totally reimagined site, totally workable, and we didn't change the underlying code base. Sometimes if your site is hard to edit, it doesn't mean it's a throwaway. And a lot of people go, what? Really? I can fix it? But you can't. So know that we help clients all the time with that. And if you're looking for small bites for big wins, here are some incremental improvements that you can make today. So first off, take a look at your navigation. Remove the links that people click on the least. Take a look at your style guide. You can implement a lot of quick fixes by simply adjusting the color palette. For example, if you run your site through an accessibility checker and you realize that your site is not accessible at all, one of the first things you can do is just look at your color contrast. That's something you can change pretty easy by just changing the color palette. Content. As you know, we really think it's a great opportunity at any point to look at your content, add new writing, add new images, try to use video. GIFs are all the rage. I think higher ed, they've got a lot of cool opportunities with GIFs and some fun animations without being too cheesy. But you can do a lot with just content. And you can also do some focused design work. We work with clients all the time that we just are reimagining sections of their page or their site to make it more impactful for the long term. So we're going to go into questions here soon, but I just want to show some real world examples of stuff we've done this for. So this is a Ludwig von Mises. They are an institute that focuses on economic freedom and so forth. And these folks here, their site is over 8 years old. It's almost 9 years old at this point. And what we've done is we've worked with them to continuously improve their website as we go. So you can check these all out afterwards. But what we did is we migrated 450,000 pieces of content into the new infrastructure, improved SEO, and then continued to iterate and iterate and iterate. And what that has happened is that when we first launched, we had like an astronomical increase in newsletter subscriptions, but we have a year over year 207% increase in newsletter subscriptions. And that's their KPI. So we're constantly working to improve that. The Learning Center for Countries in Transition, we worked with them on building a collaborative network, and we launched an initial site. They did not have a site before, and then working with us over the last 4 or 5 years, we've launched different components to this to increase engagement. And when we launched, we've been able to increase by doing iterative increases that we've had an increase in over 250% since we've reimagined the homepage. So this has been a huge thing. We did an incremental design when we measured it, and then we were able to show results, which then propagated us to continue to move forward. We also saw a huge increase in forum engagement, over 177% increase, because we actually took some incremental improvements just to the forum. CRDF Global, these are our friends, and we reimagined their Drupal 7 site because we really wanted to stretch the budget they had to make the most impact. And for them, they really didn't care if they were on 7 or 8. And what we could do is we could get so much more for the money they had by actually staying on 7. And we've come up with a skillful way to then, show the impact, and then in 2 years build it in Drupal 8 or 9 by that time. And this one again is they really wanted to focus on increasing impact on their key capabilities pages. And there was 2 ways we did that. We increased engagement to over 10 seconds, and there was a 192% increase. So know that we can help you with absolutely anything here, and I'd love to, stop and take questions here, and make sure we can provide as much help. So I do see a question here, and know that you can connect with me here or book a meeting with us. But Victoria says, our users are a mix of arts audience that want to see what's going on now, and artists who want more in-depth info and visit archival info. We're having issues separating both journeys on our website. Any suggestions? Yes. So for that, what I would recommend in some ways is taking it back to paper, mapping out each journey, and then looking at your website and seeing where it fits. You may find you want to have 2 specific calls to action. Often we find when we're helping users get to the right place is helping them self-identify to get to that place. So it might be some type of call to action that, like, are you, an artist who's looking to dig in more, and then providing like a landing page experience where they can then tear off to the different pieces of content versus the arts audience. We know we have this a lot with, like, for example, our client over at UCSF, they have lots of like, I want to make sure I can get my students. I also want to make sure that I'm providing quality research and supporting other faculty members. So often those pathways come to mapping it out and then really kind of inventorying to see what's missing. Because often you have all the bits and pieces, it's just kind of missing a little bit. Okay, let's see here. Oops.
All right, there's a question from Robert. Was this webinar for companies with websites?
So I think that it's for anybody that has a website. I feel that if you are an individual with a website, you just got a lot on your shoulders. You have to wear a lot of hats. So if it's just you doing the website, that might be skillful to really start small. And if you don't have a website yet, spinning up something on Squarespace is not a bad idea. Building out a proof of concept, coming up with some, ideas for content and strategy, and then moving into a more custom experience is really easy at that point because you've got some of your content. But this is for, anybody really. I would definitely say that if you have a company or you are part of a company, you may just have some more resources at your fingertips to get some of this stuff done.
Okay, this is Allison again. Sorry, I didn't introduce myself again last time, jumping in with Robert's question. We have one question that was submitted via the type form asking about consistency when you are dealing with many editors. And that can be, of course, anywhere from dozens of editors to hundreds to thousands of editors.
Oh my goodness, isn't that the case, hey? This beautiful world of content management system, it kind of meant the floodgates opened and all of these people are now helping with the website. And, bless those really smart people. They like to write really wordy, heady things. And it's like, what is this? So first off, coming up with, in that strategy section, if you're going to do your own strategy and you're going to think, okay, I want to look at content governance. So my strategy is like, this is the voice and tone I would like to hear and see. This is the kind of language, the writing level that we want to work towards. These are the types of images, because story, you know, content includes images. So for example, maybe your client, or maybe you know that it's better to show people versus inanimate objects. So just helping within kind of the strategy side of your game plan to say, okay, our voice and tone is this, and the language level that we're going to be writing at is this, and the imagery selection we're going to encourage is this. Putting together a bit of a plan and then training your people, because part of the challenge is they're humans. And if they're enthusiastic humans, at that point, it's pretty much giving them a nice sandbox where they know they can be creative and play, but you're containing the chaos. If it's all wild right now, and they already are all doing this, you might have to just have a little bit of like, do your strategy, and then part of that strategy is stakeholder interviews, is reaching out to each one of the people that is currently contributing to your site and saying like, what works, what doesn't, what you wish you could do, you know, and start getting them to be part of the solution. Because I found that with anything, if you get the people involved in the solution, but you ultimately have a strategy that guides it, everybody feels like they're a part of it. If you just launch a strategy and haven't talked to anybody, that usually doesn't go as well. And the humans get kind of cranky. So from that standpoint, creating a governance plan and also leveraging some of the open source tools. You can create workflows in Drupal and WordPress for content editing. So if you'd want to control the chaos just by simply putting like a funnel in it, you can use different workflows so that if Sally publishes something and then it has to go to Beth for review, and once Beth signs off on it, then it goes live, cool, you can make their website do that for you. So lots of options there. Cool.
There's a question here from Carrie in the Q&A. Are there sites or places that one can go to test your website for accessibility, and can you recommend some?
You betcha. And we'll share some resources right after this. One of my favorite things is a plugin called Lighthouse. It's actually a tool you can go and use, but it's this, you probably see it in my browser. It's a little lighthouse right there. So what Lighthouse does is it gives you a quick and dirty analysis on SEO, performance, accessibility, and code quality. So that's a very simple and easy one, but there are some other ones that we can provide for sure. So we'll email that out with this for sure. And we'll also send you some ways, because there's some fun stuff that's really easy to do from an accessibility standpoint, which is just like, how do you make your tweets more accessible? Like, did you know when you use those little emojis, a screen reader reads out every single emoji, like what it is, like man with skin color 3 waving, right? It says all that. So a simple thing that you know is don't use emojis unless they're really meaningful content. Great questions, great questions.
Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you so much, Anne, for all this information. Thank you everyone for coming. That's it. We will be sending out a recording from the webinar in a few days. If you want to share it with others, we will be sending out a list of those resources as well. And as a reminder, Canopy would love to help you with your website. So please email us at hello@canopy.com if you're interested in 25% off any growth plan that we offer. So that's a wrap. Thank you so much, and have a spectacular rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody. Feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to help. Take care, and we'll see you soon. Bye. You gonna say bye, Bruiser? Come on, Bruiser. Come say hi. Everybody's waiting the full time to say hi to this cute little guy. See, isn't he cute? Bye, guys. Bye. Have a great day.